Hi, everyone. We're just going to give people another minute to join. I see a lot are coming in right now. So let's just wait another minute and we will begin. Thank you. All right. I think I'll get started here. I do see people are still joining, but I will get started and kick it off. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. In this webinar, we will cover the latest release of Creo Illustrate 10.1 and a little bit of a look into the next release, which will be 11.0. We welcome your feedback throughout. Just to remind you, just to please drop it into the chat, any questions that come up throughout, and we will address those at the end. I believe Jeff will also pause in between his slides as well to take questions. My name is Maya Milutinovic. I am the Product Marketing Director for the ArborText product suite, and Jeff Kuhn is the Creo Illustrate and IsoDraw product manager, and he will be taking you through today's product updates. Before we get into the product updates, I did want to just first spend a little time here up front as a reminder on the ArborText tools and where our Illustrate tools fall in place and how they connect to our broader service information management suite. Many of you are experienced users of Creo Illustrate, but we also do have some new users. We have some new partners, and as well as new customers actually from our Service Max customers that may benefit from the information. So I will just spend a little time on connecting the dots for everyone. This is PTC's end-to-end dynamic publishing solution. It streamlines how organizations create, manage, and deliver technical publications. We have specialized tools for each step of the journey. So we have XML authoring tools, we have the illustration tools, which also fall into the create phase, all the way through content management, translation management, creating SBOMs, all the way through to delivery of that content in multiple channels and format requirements. I just want to highlight here, Creo Illustrate falls into the Create bucket. Creo Illustrate and IsoDraw are our illustration tools. These are our 2D and 3D illustration tools. We work really well with our CAD product, Creo, where CAD models are reused and brought in and repurposed, as well as Windchill, our PLM solution for managing content. So our solutions work together and truly enable the digital thread. Because with Creo Illustrate, you can reuse CAD metadata and visually describe complex service procedures. You are able to be more accurate in your service instructions and part accuracy. In turn, this really helps meet the overall customer expectations, which are now more digital, visual. Customers want things faster, and they really want things done right the first time around. And I mentioned the ArborText tools are connected to Windchill, but we are CAD and PLM agnostic. However, the key point here is when connected to other PTC solutions like Windchill and Creo, that is really where the magic happens to make the digital thread possible. So I won't spend any more time on this, but I do welcome you to scan. You can take your phone right now and scan this QR code to learn more. This is a video you can start with a quick overview of Creo Illustrate, the benefits and what it can do, or just visit cad.gallery.video and search for Creo Illustrate, and that'll really get you started to learn more about our tools for illustration tools. So at this point, I will turn it over to Jeff. Jeff, you can just take control and advance yourself
All right.
and try it
Can
out.
everybody
Thank
hear
you
me
so much.
okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, welcome everyone. So we're going to be going over, in essence, Creo Illustrate 10.x, as well as some of the plans we have for 11. Over the year, I generally get questions, not just about what the current release is, but what some of the other prior releases are. So we're going to do a little bit of the 10.x family today, as well as some of the things that we're working on for the future. So with that, we'll start off with a little bit of best practice. This is another question that has been coming up quite a bit over this past year, and that is, compatibilities, but within the visualization family. So what I want to point out here is that the visualization products, which includes CreoView, CreoView adapters, CreoView toolkits, and Creo Illustrate, uh, all share the same file format supports. So if you're going to be updating one of them, you should be updating all of them. Otherwise, you could end up with, if you have a newer version of Creo View and an older version of Creo Illustrate, well, Creo Illustrate may not be able to open that data depending on how far apart they are. So it's always best practice if you're going to be updating one, that you should look across the spectrum and make sure that you're updating uh, accordingly. And by extension, you could also see that we stay in line with the Creo parametric products as well. So if you're on, say, Creo parametric 10, then you should be on Creo View 10, Creo View adapters 10, Creo Illustrate 10, that kind of thing. So with that, we'll go ahead and kick off with what some of the new features are that we've done over the past year. So I'm not going to read through this list because I have slides that are going to walk us through what these capabilities are. So we'll just jump straight into it. So this first one, improved 3D content storage in Windchill. So one of the things we've done here is in an effort to reduce file sizes or duplication of information within Windchill, we've made it so now if you're on Windchill 13 or higher, and you're using Creo Illustrate 10 or higher, there's actually a checkbox that you can check that says, in essence, don't package the 3D content when you upload the C3DI file. Because you've already pulled the C3DI file from, or not the C3DI, the PVZ file from Windchill as your base, that illustration source file. There's no reason to re-upload it encased within the C3DI file itself. So when you upload that Creo Illustrate native file now, it's just going to be the information that Creo Illustrate needs to be able to reproduce the images that you created. So, if you downloaded, say, a 3 gigabyte illustration source file, you're not going to re-upload that 3 gigabyte illustration source file. You're just going to link to it in Windchill. We did update it so that when you do this workflow and you're using the server-side publishing inside of Windchill for Creo Illustrate content, the server-side publishing knows to follow that link to the illustration source file, package it together to actually do the publishing, that kind of thing. So it makes it much easier or much more lightweight. You'll find that your saves and uploads happen much faster because you're now not uploading all the 3D geometries that you downloaded as part of the illustration source. You would still be uploading, any symbols such as, screwdrivers and hammers and that kind of stuff. But all of the rest of it, the base 3D information, would be stripped out. So any questions on that one? And I'll try and take at least one question per slide. All right. So we'll
I'm
continue
not,
on.
there is a raised hand. Jeff, do you prefer that they write the question or do you
That would be
want
the
me to
most efficient.
unmute? Okay. Um,
We can take this
Jonathan,
first question by unmuting them if you
sure.
prefer.
Jonathan, I see your hand is raised, so I will unmute you. Just um allow Mike. So just unmute yourself, Jonathan, and you can speak.
Well, he did put the question in the chat.
Yeah.
Any
Hi.
plans to backport this
Yeah. Perfect.
to 12.x? We are looking at what makes sense to do, but I can't give a guarantee because I don't own that side of it. So, but it is something that we're investigating as to what it would take to be able to backport this. There's a lot of, but we want to try and
When
support the when.
could that be possible then? Sort of, if you're looking into it, but when could we earliest expect it if there's possible?
I would not expect it in 2024.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
if we're able to do it, it would most likely be in 2025.
Yeah. Disappointing, but thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I hear you. I hear you. All right.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Next one up. We've added some new find and filter capability. So this is more dynamic filtering. So as you can see at the bottom of the SBOM structure tab here, you now have new filtering options. And as you type in that box where it says filter, it will actually dynamically start filtering the structure. This allows you to search for things a bit more directly and much more quickly. There's also a more button there. And if you click the more button, then you get the more traditional filter SBOM dialog box where you can then also filter on attributes and, to do a bit more as far as case sensitivity and that kind of thing. So this is a nice enhancement that we are going to be extending this across other areas, not just within the structure. And for those of you that are using Creo View, we are also extending this new find and filter with dynamic search into Creo View as well. So, but this should help accelerate finding what you're looking for. And it even remembers what you searched for. So you can use a little drop down to research for like the past 5 things, I believe it is. And I'm not seeing any questions on this one. So we'll move forward.
I do see another raised hand, but maybe just for the interest of time, can you please put your the remaining questions in the chat, please? And I did see one come in just now, Jeff, from Brandon. Any plan to add the Control F option back?
Yes, there is a plan to do that. We're not sure why it went away, but yeah, it is something that we do plan on bringing back.
Great.
So this next option, font selection. So in this, we've unlocked the local font support. So whatever fonts you have installed on your local machine are now available. This is a setting for the entire illustration set. So this is not something that where you can select a different font for each text box or something of that nature. So this basically just allows you to choose something other than Arial if there's something very specific that you want to be able to use with your graphics. Just keep in mind that it should still be something that is most likely going to be on the machines consuming it, especially if you're distributing real text in your downstream content. So if you're delivering live 3D or you're using something like CGM or SVG, if the font that you selected is not on the machine consuming the information, most likely it's going to default back to Arial anyway. So just make sure that you're choosing something that is usable by the broadest number of users that would be using it. So
Jeff,
any
there was
question?
a question on the previous one. Any option to filter or search hidden components?
Not currently. I don't believe so. I'd have to go back and look at that one to give you a confirmed answer, but I don't believe that it's searching across hidden objects, basically what's visible in the tree structure. You can do like search only what's selected, that kind of thing, but it does need to be something that's visible. Any font related questions? All right. So this other one here is new arrowhead option. So we've heard you. We've gotten some requests to be able to have 2D arrowheads even in the 3D space. Before, the arrowheads were actually cones. They were actual 3D cones. So depending on the angle of the line and the angle you were viewing from, the arrowheads would actually change shape because they were actually 3D elements in the 3D space. So with this, you now have an option to turn on 2D arrowheads so that they're always 2D, in essence, flat to the screen, even in the 3D space with live 3D content, that kind of thing. So if you've been having issues with arrowheads looking different and you want to clean that up, in Creo Illustrate 10, you now have the option to choose 2D arrowheads on leader lines, and that should clean that up. We do have future plans to give you a bit more control over what the arrowheads look like as far as, dimensions and shape and that kind of thing. But those are a bit further out. Any questions on arrowheads? All right. So new leader line options. So this one here allows you to specify that you always want the leader line to be in front. So in these two sample images that are stacked, in the past, if you had leader lines that pass through or behind other objects, we would dash that to denote that it's actually going through or behind other things. In the lower image, if you turn on leader in front, then you now have the ability to just always have it as a solid black line or whatever pen that you've chosen for the leader line, and it will just stay solid. Any questions on that one?
I do see Christopher raised his hand. Christopher, if you could please write your question into the chat and we will address it. Kevin is asking, will there be a halo?
If you have a halo property for the leader line, yes. In this particular example, I don't have a halo turned on, so it's not showing one.
Any plans to allow leader line change from the one line option?
Leader line change for the one line. I'm not sure what's being referred to as one line in this context.
Maybe Christopher, I
Oh,
can.
okay. Yeah.
Oh, do
No,
you
I
understand?
understand the question now. So in essence, having a single call out pointing to multiple, like one call out pointing at 8 volts, that kind of thing. That's my assumption, what you're asking for.
Yes, he said with multiple objects selected.
Yeah. That is something that we're planning, but it hasn't been prioritized just yet. It's one of the many, many things that we still have to get to. But it is one of the things that's on the list that we want to enhance. So other updates. So if you move to in essence, Creo Illustrate 10.x, so that's either 10.0 or 10.1, or eventually 11. You do need to update the license server to at least 11.19.1 so that your license, the updated license file is compatible. This is the same requirement across any of the products that were released in that same time frame. So even if you are going to be updating to Creo Parametric 10 or higher, you have the same requirement to update the FlexNet license server version, assuming you're using floating licenses or a license server and not doing node locked. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into 10.1 and the list of things that we did here. So this first first feature, we've improved the HLR options for dealing with transparent parts. So what we're talking about here is, as you can see in the imagery, if I have a transparent part, in this case, the outer housing, I want to be able to better control what the lines look like behind it. So what we've added is the ability to have a pen specific to the parts behind the transparency. So as you can see in this particular image, I applied a thinner gray line to the objects behind the transparent part so that you can give that a bit better illusion of actually this outer thing is semi-transparent. It's not just gone, but still be able to see what's behind it. So the sample image that you're seeing here is actually an SVG file that was output directly from a full 3D figure. So any questions there?
I do see a couple coming in. Fairy says, where in the options can I control this? If it is controllable?
Yeah, this is basically you define a pen that you would want to use for parts behind semi-transparent parts as part of the overall pen controls. So you're not going to necessarily assign this on a case-by-case basis. This is something that you would assign. I want to use for parts behind transparent parts. I want to use this pen when I publish out.
Great. And then Joseph has another one. Any plans to have a view that can comply with patent lines?
That's not something that's on our list currently. If you have a requirement around that, be more than happy to talk about it. Maybe you can reach out through your Arbortext team, and we can set up a meeting to talk about what your requirements are for that. But currently, we don't have anything in the backlog for that.
Arun Kumar says, call out and hidden geometry doesn't get displayed in SVGZ file with Creo 8.1. Is there any HLR option to show the call out for a hidden part?
No, because the call out is actually a visible property of the part. So if you've hidden a part, its call out by default disappears.
And then Adrian, I'm not sure if this is a question or a statement. We can choose between both transparency. If you can clarify that,
Yeah.
Adrian,
Yeah.
would be
In
great.
the meantime, we'll go ahead and
So can we choose between both transparency?
choose between both transparency. I'm not sure I'm understanding that as a question. Or maybe we can circle back to that one.
Okay. That's shown on the slide. Okay, we will circle back on this one, Adrian.
All right.
Thank you.
So next one. Associativity and pen support has been added to inset views. So the templates that you create now for Creo Illustrate for inset views are now associative. That was a gap we needed to close to allow you to update the style of your inset views and then have that actually apply to the inset views. The limitation here, though, is that the information we need is not in prior inset views. So this ability to have the associativity is from 10.1 going forward. This is not necessarily something that will automatically apply to older current inset views prior to 10.1. Now, once you assign one of these templates in 10.1, that will be associative, but it's not going to automatically inherit anything in older Creo Illustrate files. And then we've also added support for pens, so being able to better control like the border pen and as well as the, my mind's going blank, leader lines and that kind of thing. So. All right. You'll move on to the next one.
Yep,
Oh,
no questions here.
Oh, okay.
I'm not seeing anything. Thanks.
So this one here, transparent background option for raster formats that support it. So if you go to set up your publish options in Creo Illustrate, or just do a direct to a raster format, one of the options you now have is to set the alpha channel or the background to be transparent. So pretty straightforward. Again, you can use it for either exporting or publishing to raster formats.
A couple of questions coming in here. So, have there been solved problems quality in the publication of small images, A4 size? When you magnify, you see. It looks like it's poor quality for the A4 size. Has this been resolved?
I would have to have a ticket number and go back and see, if there's a tech support ticket for that to see if it's been resolved or not.
Okay. There's a question from Brian. Does this work when exporting to PDF through publishing engine?
That I do not know. Because publishing engine uses PV batch to publish to raster images, and as opposed to the Creo Illustrate engine. We are working on that particular thing as well to allow it to the Arbortext publishing engine to publish everything the same way that Creo Illustrate publishes it.
Okay, we can get back to you, Brian. I made a note on that one. Giovanni had another question. Have they introduced the possibility of creating a PDF vector file as
No,
in Creo View MCAD?
no, that has not been added to Creo Illustrate yet. It is one of the things on the list to do, but it has not been worked on yet.
Okay. And another question is how do you set angle 23, 25, or 40 degrees in Creo and IsoDraw?
That's something that we would need to discuss elsewhere. Today, we're just going over what the new capabilities are. If
Okay.
you'd like to get support in how to do things in the product, please reach out to your Arbortext team and we can set up a session to walk through any questions you have as far as how to use the tool and that kind of thing.
I made note of it, so we'll reach out.
All right.
Not seeing anything else.
Okay. So this one here is sort of unique. So as most of you may be aware, we are on a journey to add more and more native 2D authoring capability into Creo Illustrate. As part of that, it also includes being able to open up legacy 2D content. So on that particular road, we needed the ability to create a blank, empty 2D figure. So we added that, and as opposed to just leaving it hidden until we can actually import legacy 2D content, we went ahead and exposed it. So, if you want to draw from scratch, if you have Creo Illustrate Professional, you would be able to just create a blank 2D empty figure and then just start drawing from scratch if that's what you would like to do. So there's not a lot to it. It's just one of those things that we needed to be able to do. And so instead of keeping it hidden, we just decided to go ahead and let you have access to it while we continue to build out other 2D capabilities. All right. So next up.
Sorry, something just came in.
Okay.
Is it going to be possible in the future to use standard text, arrow lines, background filling colors, example in Creo Illustrate 2D?
Yes. So just as a sort of a broad answer to the question, we're using Creo Illustrate as sort of the model that we want to get to. That's not to say that everything will work the same. We want to, apply new workflows and new methods of doing things. We don't just want to copy paste ISO draw into Creo Illustrate. But being able to author text, as a matter of fact, one of the things, and I'll jump ahead a little bit, one of the things we're working on for the 11.x releases is 2D layers and groups to be able to do that kind of thing. There's still a long way to go, but it is something that we are actively working on. And, with most releases, we're adding some additional 2D capability. To answer Richard's question, no. Although basically any 2D vector or raster, that's one of the reasons we created this blank figure, this blank 2D figure. But the ability to import those is going to be further down the road. One of the things that we need to do, again, is add like 2D figures, proper text handling, and all that kind of stuff to the 2D side before we can even start importing stuff. Because if we can't properly display what you imported, there's no real reason for us to import that information. So, but being able to import, like AutoCAD, DXF, DWG stuff, as well as, re-import SVGs and CGMs and the ISO draw native formats and all that kind of stuff. Those are absolutely on the roadmap. We just need to build the capability to properly display those before we actually start bringing them in. All right.
There, Christopher did have another one. Are there going to be tools or updates to improve visual consistency between your 3D figure when it's loaded as a 2D figure?
I'm assuming that you're talking about rendering styles if you're rendering a 3D figure as, in essence, black and white line art. Or is there something else that you're referring to?
Christopher, if you can clarify that, and then maybe we come back to it.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So this particular capability is one we added to make it easier to protect intellectual property. Was the primary focus here. So this is an option in Creo Illustrate. So you can see here in the publish settings, you now have the option to remove all unnecessary attributes, but still maintain compatible with ACD, so Arbor Text Content Delivery. So what this does is you check that box and we go through and we remove all the attributes. The only things we leave behind are system properties. Those are things that Creo Illustrate itself added to make sure that it can manage the content properly. So think like the object name, which in some cases might be a part number or something of that nature, that would still be there. Model annotation properties. Now this is the model annotations. Those would still be there unless you deliberately say you want them removed. And then instance ID and parts link structure ID. These are components that are required for ACD compatibility. So those links would be maintained as well. Currently, this does not impact schematic attributes. So if you're using this with schematics, your schematics are not going to be modified in any way. That's something that we need to get to further downstream. And as a note for any admins we might have on the line, in this same time frame that we released this in 10.1, we also added some capability in Windchill to more granularly do this. So you would actually be able to specify what attributes you want to remove. And there are some new workflows to be able to even reprocess content that you have to clean the attributes and whatnot out. This is different and separate from anything you might do with the recipe file to modify the geometry, in essence, to dumb the geometry down. This is strictly about just a simple checkbox. Hey, I want all the attributes gone except what's required to make it function downstream. So any questions on this one? So not in this. This is just anything that the graphic does not need, like the system properties. So if you go into your attributes inside of a Creo Illustrate file, you'll see some properties that Creo Illustrate itself added. It's much more visible if you loaded something that's doesn't really have a lot of metadata, like a DXF or something of that nature that might not have a bunch of content in it. We'll add properties in there to make sure that that we can control the individual objects and whatnot better. Everything else gets removed except for the instance IDs and whatnot. If you're more interested in a deeper dive in that, we can certainly have a discussion as it relates to what you can do in the Windchill side to be able to more granularly control that kind of information. So in that context, it would be good to, again, reach out to your ArborText team, and we can set up some time to walk through your particular use case and see if what we have available fits what you're looking for. All right.
Jeff, there was a clarification on the previous one where he was referring to locking a view that has notes or text that visually sits in one location, but once moved to 2D shifts and is not a one-to-one output for the rotatable 3D figure.
Okay, that's another one that I would need a
Okay.
support ticket on to investigate to see what's been done. because some of these things, if there's a support ticket on it, it doesn't always bubble up all the way to me. It's something that gets fixed in the background, so to speak. So that's why I would need a ticket number to be able to research and see what individual things that customers have reported as a bug or that kind of thing that needs to be addressed.
Okay, and I'm not sure, did you answer the one about parameters called from windshield? Can they be controlled?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Okay,
that's one of
okay.
those ones
That's the previous one. Okay.
that they need to, yeah, they'll need to reach out to their Arbortex team so that we can set up a one-on-one session
Great.
to see what their
I'll make a
requirements
note of
are.
that one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this next one has to do with model annotations. So there's now an option, and this is sort of an all or nothing. Do you want model annotations to be visible in the inset views? So it's your choice as to whether you want to do that or not, but you can now toggle whether it's visible or not. And this does impact all of the inset views within that illustration set. So within that particular C3DI file. So do you want this to be visible or not visible based on your own preferences?
There was another one from Richard on, I think the previous one. We would like to see our wind chill security label attributes ITAR as a watermark to publish.
Okay. That is something that we've gotten requests for. So would love to have a deeper discussion on exactly what your requirements are and what your expectations would be. That is one of the things that I'm gathering information about. I don't have a timeline for when, because I gather information about a lot of things that could take a while to get to, but that is one of the topics that I'm actively collecting information on. So would love to have a discussion on that. And for anybody
Great.
else that has that kind of thing, and it doesn't even need, if you have a requirement to have some kind of watermark applied to an illustration at publishing, um, whether it's in regards to wind chill or not, feel free to reach out, and I'd love to be able to have a discussion and collect some more feedback from the customers to see what their real needs are.
Great.
All right. So next up, this one here is just sort of something that we have been meaning to do for a while, and one of our designers, one of our graphics designers, had some time. So basically, what these are, if you go into the online help on the landing page for Creo Illustrate 10.1, you'll find some links to be able to download shortcut pages as PDFs and be able to print them out and that kind of thing. So just a little nice to have if you're curious about what all the keyboard shortcuts are. We did have the lists there before, but now there's a nice little printable PDF that you can download and print out if you want to keep it next to your computer to learn what all the keyboard shortcuts are. And there are different pages for different things. And as we add new shortcuts and whatnot, we will update these pages. But as you can see, there's one for general, one for 2D, one for 3D, and then one for schematics. So just a little nice to have.
I see a question, can this annotation control be applied for different inset? And is it
No.
common?
Yeah, the current capability is you either toggle it on or off and it affects all of them. We do have plans to make that an option that you could set per, in essence, inset template, but that's a bit further down the road. That's a larger body of work that needs to be done. And so we went with an an option that we could at least get something out there for everyone to be able to better control it. But unfortunately, it's not a per. It's not only is it not a per inset view, it is not a per template either. It's just they're either all on or they're all off. So with that, what else do we have planned? Now, as always, when talking about what's ahead, this is forward-looking information subject to change without notice. This is not even a guarantee that any of these things will be arriving when we plan them to arrive. So just keep that in mind that this is forward-looking, just to give you an idea of where we're heading and some of the things that we're planning on over this next calendar year. So with that is just a list. So as I had mentioned before, I talked about 2D layers and groups. Right now, this is targeted for 11.0, so June of this year. But this is just that. This is 2D layers and groups. This is not layers and groups in the context of 3D. Again, this is working towards that ability to be able to import legacy 2D content, such as CAD drawings and CGMs and that kind of thing. But this is just another step along that particular road. Rich text formatting. So this is sort of a part one. We're adding the ability on the 3D side. So this is not 2D. This is the 3D side. In like note boxes and whatnot, you'll be able to add bullet points. You'll be able to do bold and italicized. And we're also introducing the concept of header text versus content text. So you would be able to define, this is what I would want the header in a note box to look like, and this is the style I want, or the size and whatnot that I want for the body or content of the text box. We do have plans to do tables and those kinds of things at a future point, but for right now, it's going to be primarily bullet points, bold, italicized, as well as the concept of a header and main body. So inset view titles is basically just what it says, the ability to add a title such as detail A, detail B, that kind of stuff to the inset views so that you can better distinguish them. Inset view fixed sizing and scaling options. So this is allowing you to specify that the inset view will always be at this X and Y dimension, or that you would scale it to, 50% or 100% or 150% or things of that nature to give you a more finite control. And then admin standards from a central location. So hopefully you all are aware and are using the new Creo Illustrate admin tool. If you are not and want to know more about it, again, reach out to your Arbortext team and we will be happy to talk with you about it. Basically, this is the tool that allows you to create standards so that all of your illustrations, at least within reason, conform to the same visual standards. You're using the same line weights and line styles and colors and all those kinds of things. What we're adding here is basically a better way to centrally manage this. So this includes putting the standard in Windchill. So when you connect your Creo Illustrate to Windchill, your Creo Illustrate will download the standard and apply it, and you'll be able to iterate the standard in Windchill and be able to update the various users and that kind of thing. In addition to doing it with Windchill, we're also adding in the capability to say, hey, this is where I want, on some file server somewhere, I want to keep my standards and then have all the individual clients point to that location and be able to get the standard from that central place without having to do stuff with XML files and things to make it work. So just basically we're looking at just adding it into the user interface that you can set up a central location and be able to manage your standards from there. Another one, ability to copy translation information. So this is like, but one of the things for those that aren't aware, I used to be a technical illustrator way back in a former life. One of my favorite things was to select a bunch of parts, move them, only to discover I missed a washer or something and have to try and realign that washer. So what this is the ability to copy the translation information from one part and apply it to another part. This even works across figures, so you could copy that translation information from one figure and paste it into another. If the engineers added 2 extra bolts and now you want to apply that same translation movement to the 2 new bolts as you did to the 6 bolts that used to be there, you can do that stuff as well. And then we have a couple of research projects. And I'm labeling these as research projects because, again, if you're interested, we could get some feedback on. So better integration with process planning. This one here is not directly service related. The better integration component is, but one of the first targets we're looking at is process plans. So think MPM link if you're doing manufacturing work instructions. But overall, this will also extend to like the parts list editor in Windchill and whatnot. So the concept is to bring more of the workflows that you currently do inside of Windchill into Creo Illustrate to get you closer to a point where you don't ever have to go directly into Windchill's user interface. You can just do what you need to through Creo Illustrate talking to Windchill, as opposed to jumping back and forth between. So again, the first one is around process planning, but the basic concept is better integration overall. So if you would like to have a discussion on your hopes and dreams of a better integration of Creo Illustrate with Windchill, again, reach out to your Arbortext team and we can set up some time to discuss those particular topics. The other one, which I really like, is shrink wrap scenery parts. So this is the ability in Creo Illustrate to define what's the scenery. In essence, what's that background, the context. I'm not talking about these parts, but I need them in the background to be able to tell my story so that they know where these bolts are coming from, that kind of thing. So the intention is that you would be able to define those parts, and Creo Illustrate itself will then shrink wrap that. As those of you that are aware of what shrink wrap is, it will significantly reduce the overhead for that blob of geometry because it will move all the interior parts of that background and that kind of thing. So that is something that's in research. That I would say there's a 50-50 chance that makes it into 11.1, so December. If it's not in 11.1, then it will most likely be in 12, which would be next summer. Now, this will work with or without Windchill, but it does require access to the structure edit tools. So if you're using Essentials, this is not something that you would be able to do. You need to have professional or standard to be able to do this. There is work going on for those of you that are aware of what Quick View is in Windchill. In essence, that's Windchill pre-shrink wrapping assemblies that have been defined. I want to do like the first 3 levels of assemblies as these new 3D thumbnails that we call Quick View. part of the better integration is actually to be able to load those directly from Windchill. So you wouldn't necessarily even need to define that background because you'd be loading all that stuff as lightweight 3D thumbnails and then telling Creo Illustrate, I need this assembly as real parts so that I can tell my story. That kind of thing. So there are several things along those lines that you can look forward to, but the shrink wrap, that's something that's going to be there for whether you're using QuickView or not, or even whether you're using Windchill or not. You'll be able to say, shrink wrap this stuff, and we'll do that, and then you can publish that out to your downstream stuff. So it looks like we had a lot of things come in. We have about
Yes.
4 minutes. I also saw the applauds and things going on for the shrink wrap. So I'll take that as you think that's a positive. So what
Yes, we
else
have
do we
a
have?
few questions that just came through. So I think going back to the rich text formatting, is it going to work with current style sheets in editor?
So this is still going to be just inside the Creo Illustrate content. So whatever you're publishing, if you're publishing to 2D and whatnot, then that content will exist inside. It will not necessarily be influenced by the Arbortext style sheets and that kind of thing. In this first go around, that's still going to be separate. That's something that we can go, and investigate further down the road. But in this first release, having it influenced by Arbortext style sheets and that kind of stuff in an APE kind of publishing process, that's not part of this first go around.
All right. Fairy made a comment, woohoo, insert fixed sizing. Really hope this will go on. And people liked it. Do you have a timeline of Creo Illustrate to fully replace IsoDraw functionality, if ever, so that we can disband IsoDraw? And few people liked it.
So the intention is we will continue to build that. To be quite honest, it's going to be a multi-year project. So one of the things I would recommend is, keeping an eye on that space. And when it reaches a level of capability that works for you, go ahead and make the switch. There is no current intention to get rid of IsoDraw. In fact, what we're currently targeting is more I guess you could say, a replacement for the CAD process style workflow. Not that you can't draw 2D from scratch inside of Creo Illustrator. The intention will be there to do that. But if all you're looking for is 2D, right now there's no plan to have a Creo Illustrate 2D only version. It will always be 3D and 2D, depending on which version you have. Right now, the 2D is only available in Professional. The other two versions do not have 2D at all, other than as an export option. So that's the current plan. Timeline is, we'll get the work done as quickly as we can, but there's a long road ahead.
Great, thank you. Is there a plan to implement some hand 3D symbol tool similar like for IsoDraw? Example, the hand which will hold the screwdriver.
That's not something that we currently have. We do have a general requirement to improve the symbols library as far as what content is in there and that kind of thing. When we get to a point where we start planning for that, that would be something that I would then start collecting, what kind of improvements do people want to see. We have some basic information that there are some improvements, not just in content in the symbols library, but in how it functions. But technically speaking, there's no reason that you couldn't add your own 3D hands into the library to do those things. But as far as out of the box, that's we don't have something directly planned for that. But it is something that we could take a look at as part of the Better Symbols library stuff.
Okay. We are getting quite a bit more questions. We are up on time. Do you want to stay on, Jeff, and answer these, or?
Actually, I have another meeting to go to,
Okay.
unfortunately.
So will
If you
we,
want to collect
yeah,
the questions, we'll take a read through them and respond to those and
absolutely.
send it out to everybody. So
Absolutely. We'll respond in the chat, as well as we can send an email. There's a few people that are interested in the shrink wrap research. So we'll just get back to you all on the outstanding questions, and appreciate everyone's time. Thank you, Jeff, as well, for your time and taking us through all these great
absolutely.
updates.
Yep.
All right, we will end it there. Just want to be sensitive to everyone's time, and looking forward to the next one. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great
Have a
rest of
great
your
day.
day and evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.